Hello and welcome to today's episode of Courage Permission Slip. I am your host, Kia, and today I cannot tell you how excited I am to welcome a dear friend, a truth teller, and also someone who, like me, thinks about food a lot, Christa Shelton. And before we dive in, I would love to tell you just a little bit more about her. Christa is a Los Angeles-based National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer and an American Council on Exercise Behavior Change specialist. And Christa specializes in helping women approach life with confidence through movement and mindset work, and how to work with the body instead of against it. So important. Christa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kia. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And Christa, I have to say, I threw in the food piece because I was going through some old, because I think about Brutus.
Yes.
I was going through some old pictures. I was looking for something and I found a bunch of pictures from when we were planning our Nourish You retreat. Yes. And I remember whenever we would do because we would alternate between your house and my house.
Yeah.
And we would always be like, okay, so what snacks do we want to have so that we could have our spread? And so important. I was like, I got to talk about food because when I'm having a meal, I'm thinking about what the next meal is going to be. And I know we are sisters in that regard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Food is always important. I don't have any for this interview. I was like, let me just not, put Bruce to the side. But yes, we definitely have that in common.
Yes. Oh, so funny. But the other thing I was thinking about, Christa, as I was getting ready for our time together, and I just think about as friends and as fellow entrepreneurs, how when we do our check-ins, right, they're always so deep and thought-provoking and edge-snatching. And I was thinking about your recent Instagram post, your Tuesday Truth Bomb. And you were talking about this place of thinking about when it's time to pivot versus it being time to actually let go of something. And there was something that you wrote in that post that really, I commented, but it really, really stuck with me, and I want to read it. Okay. And I want to just hear your thoughts on the other side. You wrote, "My hope is that we continually give ourselves freedom, the freedom to not know, the freedom to pivot, the freedom to start over and try something else, and the freedom to let it all go." And I mean, I feel like that is the foundation of Courage Permission Slip, right? And I mean, because it is all about like, you are free to do what you want, right? Despite what society says, despite what family says, or, the talking heads, you are free to do what you want. Give yourself permission to do that. And so I would love to hear your perspective, right? Like what was coming up for you? What were you feeling when those words came out of you?
Well, it's so interesting. First of all, it's really interesting to hear somebody read your words back to you. So I wanted to say that first. I was like, it's interesting sensation to hear somebody read back to you. I don't think I've had that before. But interestingly enough, that post took me a long time to write. Really all day, actually, because I was going back and forth about my thoughts, like you said, the foundation of what was coming up for me. And I think that this month has been a lot of exploration for me in terms of what do I really want for myself? What do I really want for myself personally? What do I really want for myself professionally? And I've been trying to really dig a little bit deeper in that. I mean, obviously, I've had a vision for a while for what I want my life to look like, what I want my work to look like. But as you go along in your journey and growing a business, there are a lot of things that come up that can derail you, that can make you question, that can make you, second guess, am I doing the right thing? And so I've been doing a lot of that deep, heavy exploration this month. And that's what came up for me, because interestingly enough, the thing that I had been grappling with was I kind of nodded to a little bit of that post, the Patreon, right? I started that in the beginning of November, and, it just hasn't been, gaining the traction that I'd like it to have, and just trying to figure out, okay, is this a thing where I wait it out I continue to show up and do it? Or is this a situation where maybe it is time to let it go? I haven't come to that determination yet, but that was sort of what was underneath of that, in addition to just other aspects of my business that I'm looking at, and just really just sitting in that place of really accepting not knowing right now and being okay with that. And so that's where that came from, because I feel like being a type A personality, it's very hard to set aside those ways of being, to set aside the type A-ness and really just be, and think that if you're just being, that everything is going to dry up, that everything is going to explode. And so that is really kind of what was underneath, and that was just my own exploration about where I sit, where I'm going, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and being free to explore those things and know that whatever I arrive to, that's okay. Yeah. If I arrive to a situation where it is, okay, I'm going to let this thing go, but that's okay. If I arrive to, no, it's just a pivot, that's okay too. And so that was really what was underneath all of that.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate, how thoughtful and intentional you are when thinking about moves to make, right? And, putting the type A aside, because I know what that's about, and how that can really there are a lot of benefits to type A-ness, but then there are a lot of downfalls to it too, and really trying to find ways to be comfortable with falling back from that type A-ness. So, I really, really appreciate that thoughtfulness that you put into decisions that you make, whether it be personal or professional. And the thing that I feel is important to say, that it's like another piece of permission, or maybe it's pragmatism, but when someone is doing that deep exploration, right? When they're doing that deep can't talk, that deep internal assessment, right? And processing, there is belief that, or expert opinions, that one of the things that keeps people from doing that exploration is what they're going to find out on the other side, and then what they're going to have to do about it. And what I think is important to identify and highlight is that whatever revelations come from that deep exploration, those, really intentional assessments, it's important to remember that you don't have to do anything about it in that very moment, right? Like when you come up with this is something that's important for me to let go of, or, this is important for me to really double down on. Just because it's revealed to you doesn't mean that you have to do anything in that exact moment with it, right? Like you can let it marinate, so that, the how to make those things happen can be revealed, right? But you have to know the what first.
Yes. No, I totally agree with that. Is that, I think that's the thing where a lot of people do shy away from wanting to do these things, because it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And once you open Pandora's box, it's open. And so you are opening yourself up to all of the emotions, everything that comes with that type of exploration. But I think that is such an important point that you just said, that no, it's just because it comes up and you are aware of something doesn't mean that you have to do something right away.
Exactly.
It's a gift to be able to see it. And then, I think it's important to feel the feelings of it, and then do take some time to figure out, okay, what to do next. But I think that's such an important point to make there, for sure.
Yeah. So good. So good. So speaking of freedom and permission slips, let's talk about some of your other ones. So when you think about the word courage, Christa, what comes to mind? Like, what does it mean to you?
To me, it means really moving in faith, like doing the thing that comes up for you that you really feel drawn to do, and actually taking action and doing the thing. That's what it means to me. Like when I think of the word courage, faith comes up right next to it for me, because I feel like when you are led to do something, at least in my life, when I look back at my life and the things that I've chosen to do, it has always come with some faith underneath of it, because most of the choices that I've made have not made a lot of sense to a lot of people. So you need then the faith on the other side of that. And so that's what comes up for me. Like, okay, I'm going to do this thing no matter what, and then allowing faith to kind of carry you through that. So those kind of things work together for me.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the faith piece, because when you feel that courage bubbling up of, this is the thing that I want to do, and I don't I don't care. I'm not worried about the pain that it's going to take to get me to that thing. But, what gives people pause, whether it be permanently or momentarily, is this worry of, what are people going to think? And how is this going to look? Are people going to think that I'm crazy? Are people going to think I don't know what I'm doing? Right. And that is where that faith comes in, because I think about something that one of my favorite pastors talks about, where he says, like, faith, there are things that your spirit knows that your mind does not know or can't make sense of, right? And so when you said, like, even if it doesn't look like it makes sense, like, I have these ideas all the time that are truly like divinely inspired ideas. They've been coming to me repeatedly. And when I look at it through like the lens of logic, I'm like, there is no freaking way. There's no freaking way. How? What?
Yes.
Kia, like, what are you doing? Right. But when you are in faith, right, like you are really walking in spirit, right? And that defies logic, right?
Oh my gosh.
Defies sensibility, right?
Yes.
You are just like, I am being carried by this current. I don't know what's happening, but this is what's going to happen. And so that faith, really, I feel, and I agree with you, I feel like that faith and courage walk in lockstep, because you have to have that knowing that, okay, these people are going to think that I am a plumb fool, and I believe in the destination that I'm walking to, so I'm just going to keep going, and y'all can say what you want.
Exactly, for sure. I totally agree with that 1,000%. You were just taking us to church there just a second ago. Like when you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because your spirit is telling you something. It is a different sensation. And for me, that's always kind of what has been loudest for me. Like, I know when when it's my spirit saying, like, move, do this thing. And then when that shows up, I don't know how to ignore that. I will say that, interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with my best friend, B, as you know. I was having a conversation with her, and this exploration I've been doing this month. And one of the things that I have been discovering or looking at is, I feel like I need to tap into that a little bit more now, because I feel like the Christa of my 20s, early 20s, throughout maybe like into my early 30s, I had a lot much more abandon. Like, I had much more courage, I guess. I think I had much more courage, and I was more willing to do those things and to move, like I'm saying, like in spirit. Like, I can point to so many specific points in my life where I've done that, right? And then I'm looking at myself now, and I'm like, something has shifted a little bit. Something has changed a little bit for me, where it's still there, but where before it was a megaphone, it's a little bit more kind of like, I wouldn't say as small as a whisper, but somewhere in between the two. And I'm looking at why that is. I have some, I feel like part of it is also getting older, and you start thinking about retirement, and you start thinking about, okay, you have to have certain things set up, and you need to, check these boxes and make sure these things are in place. But at the same time, what's true then is still also true now. You know what I'm saying? Like, those things, that was true at that point too. So what is it that's keeping me a little bit more in the safety zone? now
Yes.
than before. So that's one of the things I've been exploring for myself. I feel like at the end of the day, I still have enough in me, and I have received enough still in, being in my 40s now to where I'm still moving that way.
Mhm.
But I can tell the difference. And that goes back to the exploration piece and things that come up. So I'm in awareness about it. And so now I can sit with that and then figure out, okay, in what ways do I need to reactivate myself in a way to where I'm not, so into this like safe space to where I can continue to really be bold, make big moves, and not be afraid to do so because I am older and because I think I should have A, B, C, D, or E, if that makes sense.
It does. And I too, I would say within the last few years, I had that revelation too, Christa, where I was going back through, I had gone back home and was cleaning out some stuff from, my college years and when I was early to mid 20s. And I was looking at some of the things, because I take on everything. And so I was looking at notes about like people that I was wanting to meet with, or that I was about to meet with, or, letters that I had written to companies. And I saw that and I'm like, wow, like I really was out here, right? Like I was really out in these streets, just going after my dreams, right? I was going after, like I would name, like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to talk to. And then I would find a way. And this is, pre-internet, right? Like I just, right? Like this was, I was making cold calls. I'm sending, writing letters to people. I'm just showing up at people's offices.
Yes.
And, the times now, for all the reasons, that doesn't work. But but just the principles that I lived by then, I remember thinking very similarly to myself of what happened to that girl? What happened to the 23-year-old me that was just, showing up in offices like, oh, I want to work here. What do I need to do? Right. And not worried about, the response that I was going to get. Like if I get a no, it'd be like, okay, on to the next.
Yeah.
And while I have done, and even recently have done some things that, again, have defied logic, I did have to find ways to tap back into that. And while I still, made those steps, I still could feel that lens that you were talking about, like, I'm older now. There's there are much fewer years to retirement than there were when I was, 25. And so thinking about all those life things that, many of which have been programmed into us, but also that are things that allow us to deal with very real things that we're being confronted with, right? Like as you get older, your body doesn't hold up as well, right? So there's there's a lot more that's at stake, but still trying to find the balance between being that girl of the 23, 24, 25-year-old Kia and trying to, capture some of that now so I can still go after these things that, it feels like I'm just kind of getting started in many regards.
Right. And I think that's the thing. I think that, like you said, there's so much programming and conditioning. And I think especially what we're told about getting older and about aging that, even subconsciously, can start to weigh in on the ways that you're showing up, right? And then you may not even realize it until you realize it, right? So until I came to the point where I was like, okay, this is happening. Why is this happening? And so because I do think, like you said, there is a balance that you can strike there. And so I'm just making sure that Christa is still, I know she's there still because, there are ways where she keeps showing up, but like, okay, what more can you do? How can you be more courageous at this point in your life right now? Where are there places where you are playing it safe, where you don't need to be playing it, where you shouldn't be playing it safe? And I hate to use, I always talk about you should all over the place, but just, but like really like asking yourself like, okay, why are you playing it safe here? You know, if anything, this is the time to really amp it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, and really, you know, be out there. What is holding you back? What are the things? What are the fears? What is standing in your way? And so that has really been what my entree to 2022 has been, is really just being in those spaces and investigating.
Yeah. So you talked, I mean, we've been talking back and forth about the fears. So what would you say are some of the fears that are popping up for you, especially as you're doing this navigation of, you know, what is holding me back? What is in the way? Can you name some of those things?
You know, interestingly, I don't know if I can name it right now. I think it's something that I'm still exploring. I do know the big thing is always, you know, I have this big vision for my business and my life, like I said. I think then the fear is not realizing it. That's always what the big fear is. It's like not realizing it, because once I left working in corporate to begin doing what I know to be my life's work, I said, and I continue to say, there is no plan B. Like, I can't go back. And trust me, I have thought many a time, even this month, should I go back? Wouldn't it be easier for me just to go back to, you know, I know what I'm making, I have a salary, the safety, all of the things. I can do what I want when I want, you know, those things creep up, right? When you are running your own business and you're trying to build and to grow. And every time I think that, there's always some type of sign or reminder that, no, girl, that ain't it. That's just fear. But then also being okay with, well, what if I did decide, you know what, this has been cool. It's time for me to do something else. What would that look like? Would I feel like? I think I've been allowing myself to feel into that a little bit more too. And that goes back to my post about just exploring the freedom to pivot, the freedom to let go, and just being in all those spaces. So I think the bigger fear, like to your original question, the bigger fear is not realizing the vision. That is the biggest fear, because I know that I have been gifted with the ability to do the work that I'm doing. And I know that I feel alive in it. I know that there are ways that I need to pivot in order to actually step into it more. And I think that's just where I'm right now. It's just kind of tapping in or trying to discover, okay, what else? What else do I need to be doing that I'm not doing? What am I missing that I've been missing? Really kind of investigating those corners. But the biggest fear is, like I said, always not realizing the vision and, you know, going back. And even if I did make that decision, like I always said, like I've always said, it's this or nothing, because I can't imagine a life going back to what I was doing before. Like, I feel like I would be a shell of a person if I did that. And that's not good either. So,
right.
You know, but yeah, I just think the fear is always not realizing the vision, because the vision is real, it's there, it's strong. I want to be doing what I'm doing. And so just weeding through all of the cracks and crevices that come up in and around you showing up to figure out how to keep doing the work.
Yeah, I relate to that on so many levels. In particular, what you were saying about like not realizing the vision, that being the fear, right? And then, you know, kind of what you talked about of underneath that of like, what am I missing, right? Because those things that you're missing could be the gap between where you are and where you want to be, right? So, you know, wanting to like capture all of the inputs, right? And I think about that like all the way down to, there was a conference that I had signed up for. And, you know, for stuff like that, I do have FOMO, right? Like I'm worried that, oh, if I don't go to this session, right, I'm going to miss the information. And what is important, I think, especially at this stage in my career, I know most of what I need to know, right? Like I know the things, like the foundational things to do. And so so that goes back to the trust piece, right? That goes back to the faith piece of having faith in your knowledge, right? And if you don't know it, there is someone in your immediate network who either knows it or can put you in touch with that. But remembering that most, if not all of what you need already resides within you. But again, I so resonate with that, Christa, of like, ooh, but what am I missing though? Right? Like, what's that thing that could be the key to unlock the thing that helps the vision come to pass?
And that's why I also think it is important to sit back and do these explorations.
Yes. Christa, you talked about the decisions that you had to make to leave corporate America. And so I would love to hear you just kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about, what are those places early on where you had to give yourself permission to get to where you are today?
Oh gosh, there are so many, but I'll just do the one that really led me into what I'm doing right now. And so, I was actually working for a woman that was, she owned her own Pilates studio and she was a trainer herself. And, I had already been blogging about veganism for a while, since like 2010. I just kind of picked that up as a hobby to start blogging about it because people would ask me questions about it. And really, it was just an outlet for me. But then it just took on a life of its own. And I started, getting tasked to write other pieces. And, it really just opened me up in a way that I wasn't expecting. I say that it chose me versus me choosing it, just kind of the way that it happened. And then so I was doing that obviously in tandem with, working, in corporate environments and so on and so forth. So my last job before I ventured off into my own thing, I was really trying to nail down like, okay, how can I branch off and work for myself? That was always something that had been in the back of my mind throughout my working years. Was like, I want to work for myself. What am I supposed to be doing? And so during that time in the blogging and the working for her, fitness has always been a big part of my life, all my life really. And, I'd always worked out and I really got heavily into strength training once I was in college and really had a love for it and something that I just kept doing. And so I was actually with a girlfriend of mine and I was showing her some type of exercise and literally I can't describe it. She and I both at the same moment were like, did you feel that? It was like this moment of clarity. I mean, it's as clear, this memory is as clear to me as I'm sitting here, that I was literally just showing her, demonstrating something to her. And it was like this light switch came on and we both felt it. And she said to me, she was like, I don't know, there's something here about this and you doing this. And it's interesting because I had kind of been pushing against the notion of doing any type of personal training, but in that moment, it was literally something shifted in the atmosphere and we both felt it. And then so from that point, I was like, okay, obviously there's something here. And I decided to go forth with getting my certification and really going into that. And at the time, the woman I was working for had asked initially when I started for a 60-day notice before I left. Unheard of, but that's what she had asked for. And there was no way that I was going to really be able to give a 60-day notice, in my mind anyway, and be trying to maybe potentially work for a gym or anyone. Like I was like, I'm gonna have to quit this job before I'm ready to quit this job so that I can honor my word and move on. And that's what I did. Now, mind you, this is not something that's new to me because I have done this before. What I said earlier about doing things that don't really make sense to other people, but they make sense to me because I'm feeling led in my spirit to do something. And this was just yet another one of those times where it was like, okay, Christa, this is what you're supposed to do. So you're gonna go ahead and give this notice. You're gonna, at that point, I had already, gone through the course, taken my exam and passed that. I was like, well, it's time. It's go time now. It's time for me to go work for a gym and get this thing popping. So I did, and lo and behold, I put in my notice. And right before like my time there was due to end, I had gotten offered to work at LA Fitness. It literally happened. Like there was no gap.
Mhm.
And that's just another example, right, of just leaning in, and how sometimes things won't make sense, and not even to you make sense,
Yes.
but you know that there's something larger that's
Mhm.
pulling you into
Mhm.
doing something.
Mhm.
And once you, if you
Mhm.
really lock into that, then you believe on the other end of it is the provision and the direction and the support and all of the things. And all of those things showed up. And so I was able to go and, I started there to a corporate gym. And then not but 4 months later, tap, tap, tap. It
Yeah.
was again like, okay, girl, it's time for you to go ahead and do your own thing. I was burnt out. I mean, I was like, if I don't leave the gym,
Yeah.
I am going to be burnt out before I even get really fully into this career.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they were
Right.
working me,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Which was good in terms of me getting my legs as a trainer and everything, but also was just like, this is too much.
Mhm.
And so it came up again. And, one of the women I had been working with, she was like, listen, I'm not going to continue on here at this gym, but I want to keep working with you. I want to pay you what you're worth. So this is, will you work with me? And once that happened, I was like, okay, this is another indicator that it's time. And I followed that. And that was back in 2015.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
really, it's just been more and more of that throughout this journey. And here I am. But those are just examples as it pertains to what I'm doing now. However, I have many more examples and training ground even before that I think was actually preparing me for those moments to usher me into the work that I'm supposed to be doing in
Mhm.
life.
Mhm. Christa, I always love hearing you tell that story. And, we've talked about this many times, but I always love hearing you talk about this. And a few things that you said really tie nicely to something that we talked about at the top of the episode, where it's this is another reason why it is crucial that you do that internal exploration and ask yourself and answer truthfully, what do you want? Even if it's just like an intersection of what you want, right? Like it doesn't even have to be like the exact detailed address. This is what the plot looks like. This is what the house looks like. It doesn't even have to be that well planned out. But if you just have an idea of the thing, or even it could be a couple things, right? But if you haven't done the exploration within to say, what do I want? Like, what kind of experience do I want to be having? How do I want to feel when I wake up in the morning, right? If you don't know that, then that is how you are going to miss these signs along the way. So, going back to what we were saying about like fearing that you're going to miss it. So I have to go back to, again, having faith and having the courage to trust the thing that you want to do, because when you know that, you won't miss anything. You won't miss the signs, just like how you didn't miss, the significance of a conversation, right? You didn't miss the significance of what your body was trying to tell you, right? Like there are all of these messages that we're getting from things that could be way beyond getting an email or getting, a phone call or tap on the shoulder from someone. There are all these other ways that messages can come to us. But if you don't know where you're trying to go, you could potentially miss the message. You could potentially miss the opportunity or the opening for you to start going after these things.
Yes. And I also think in conjunction with that, it's also looking at your receipts, right? I think that's another part of being in faith, and also what can propel you into being more courageous is when you're able to look at what you've done thus far. We're always so hyper focused on where we're not, or we can be so hyper focused on where we're not yet, or where we're trying to go, that we forget that we're sitting in directly in what we asked for, or what division or a part of the vision that we had for ourselves. There's always breadcrumbs, there's always receipts, there's always something there to remind you, like, look, you're here. Like
Yes.
you're still here. And
Right.
even if that's all you can muster is the reminder that you're still a living and breathing being, that is enough to let you know that you're not done yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it doesn't have to be, you know, that you have all these accolades, and that because somebody might be thinking, well, that might be easy for you to say, but I don't feel like I have receipts, or I haven't done A, B, C, D, or E. It doesn't matter. If you're still here breathing on this earth, I believe you are not done yet, and there's something else for you to do. There's something else for you to tap into. I really hope that anyone that's listening to this really receives that and feels like I'm feeling it so strongly as I'm saying it, like that somebody needs to hear that. It's not too late if you're still here. If you can't find a receipt, the only receipt you need is that you're still breathing.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. I'm going to amplify that. It is not too late. If you are still here, it is not too late. It is not too late.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Christa. Yes, that is that. Yes, that's the sermon. That is the sermon, friends.
Yes.
Oh boy. So in that same vein, you know, going back to, you know, the fear of the vision not being realized and the little fears along the way that you had to set right. Like, I'm going to have to quit before I'm ready. Right. Like I have to give a 60-day notice. I'm not ready to put in this notice, but I'm going to have to get ready. Right. How do you manage the fears that are coming up now? Like I said, not realizing the vision, or maybe missing something, which we've already squashed that, but, or, you know, the fear of doing something before you're ready. How do you manage the fears that arise?
You know, sometimes it's easy, and it's just a matter of looking at the fear and being like, okay, I see you, I hear you, but you're not bigger than what needs to be done. Sometimes it is just allowing yourself to be afraid, you know what I'm saying? And just be in the fear, it will pass, you know, and actually speaking to it. I think that's the other thing too, is sometimes, you know, we feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't be so vulnerable. Maybe I shouldn't talk or say that I'm afraid. But I think that when you expose it, you give it less, it has less power, right? The more that I think that we hold things in, the more power we give them. So if you speak to the fear and you say, this is what I'm experiencing, even, you know, and talking to someone, they can even help you kind of talk through that and get to like, what's the truth? Like what's really happening? You know what I'm saying? Like there's fear and then there's the truth.
Yes.
And so both of those things can be happening, but then it's just being able to kind of like move through that. Like, okay, this fear is real. This is what's happening, but let me find the truth beyond what the fear is trying to say.
Yes.
And I think that that's really kind of what I have always tried to hold on to. And then going back to what I just said too, just looking at the receipt, like when have these other, you know, places in your life that you've been where you've been in fear about something and you've seen it work out. You have time and time and time again where you have been shown you're all right. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to be all right. It's happened before. It can happen again and again and again and again. So I think when those are the things that come up, those are the reminders that I get. Like I told you, that me putting in a notice sooner than what people say, you know, the first time I've done that. So I was able to look through those other experiences and saying, when you were moving in spirit and you knew that's what you needed to do, you saw what happened on the other end of that. Tap into that, remember that. So that's how I manage.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Christa, because, and I liked that you reiterated the receipts piece, because, you know, I hear this a lot from people that are clients of mine who are trying to step into a new job, or they've been promoted into a new role or a higher role with more responsibility. And inevitably, I mean, I can almost like, you know, bet on the times that I'm going to get this question, or, you know, that this statement is going to be made, of people worrying that they're not going to be successful in the new role, that, oh, you know, I'm going to get found out, right? Those imposter feelings. And I always have to remind people, and by the way, I'm not speaking from an ivory tower on this. Like I myself, someone invited me to do something that is you know, that I've been doing in various ways and shapes. And they asked me to, you know, do it for another group of people. And, you know, while I had a, you know, great poker face in the call, when I got the call, I was like, what am I doing? Well, I don't know what I like. How am I going to do this? Right. In that very next moment, Christa, I had to say, no, wait, I've already done this. Like I've already had success in this. I have receipts. I have a Google folder, a Google Drive folder full of screenshots and testimonies of people that are like, you changed my life. Like I wouldn't be able to go after this thing. I wouldn't be able to advocate for myself if it hadn't been for you. So when I remember those things, and while I may not have done this exact thing, I already have the blueprint. So people have to remember, you already have the blueprint. As you said, success leaves breadcrumbs. You already have signals of where you've done something that you didn't know how to do, or maybe weren't as sure about, but you still made it happen.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Yes.
1,000%.
Yes. So, Christa, I know you're still doing your exploration right now at this moment, and you are giving yourself permission in a lot of ways. And I'm curious to hear from you, what do you feel is the next thing, without, you know, you giving away any like big plans or whatever, but you know, what is that next thing that you feel like you're going to have to give yourself permission or that freedom to do, or maybe think, or maybe even say?
You know, I think I'm doing a little bit of it now. You know, I've been being called to be very open and transparent about this exploration this month. Here with you on this call, the posts, the Tuesday Truth Bombs I've been doing has been tapping on me to be very extra vulnerable and extra open. And I think that's why it took me all day to write that post. And so I think more of that. I think whatever is next in terms of my work and in terms of the next leveling up, because yes, I am continually claiming that. And whatever is next for me, this next phase, this next, like I said, this next year, is going to be more of being more bold and more vulnerable. And out loud. Because I feel like I'm those things, right? I do feel like I have those things, and I try to be as open and honest as I can, you know, especially in my relationships. People that know me well know that, like you and I do deep dives and we talk about a lot of things. Like I don't really shy away from that, you know, with people that know me personally, but I feel like I'm being called to do that more out loud. And so whatever that's for, I think is definitely attached to this next phase of my business and working with women and you know, behavior change and all of the things that I'm really leaning more into my work. And so we'll just see. But I know, like I said, the bottom of it is like I'm being called to be real in my business right now. So I'm just trying to make sure I go with that and continue to show up in that. And it's interesting because it's resonating. I can see it resonating. You know, the way the responses that even I got from this last post, even, you know, I got a couple of messages. And so, you know, there's something to that. And so I guess I'll have to say, stay tuned to that, because I don't quite know, but I do feel like it's connected to that. It's connected to that somehow.
Yeah. Something I wanted to say about that, you know, because you've mentioned the importance of being vulnerable a couple of times, and I think this is an important moment to remind someone who's listening that there is a lot of power in vulnerability. That it's not weak, or it's not weakness. It takes a lot of courage to be honest, right? It takes a lot of courage to say, this is where I'm at, this is working, this is not working, this is what I don't know about what's next. So I want to take this moment to remind the person that's listening to this that there is a lot of power in being open. There's a lot of power in being vulnerable. And just like how you've gotten a lot of responses to your post, you know, I did a post the other day about a big rejection that I got from someone that I have had my heart set on working with for a really long time. And while I knew there was always a possibility that it was not going to go the way that I wanted to go, I knew that there was a possibility that they would say no. There was still a big part of me that was like, no, like this is going to work, right? Like it just, it feels too aligned, right? And I got the no. And it was a very kind no, you know, it was it was a no with like, but maybe later kind of thing, right? It was a very kind no. It wasn't a like, no, you suck, we don't want to talk about you, right? But still, Christa, like the feelings caught me. I mean, they hit me out of left field. I was not expecting to feel as heartbroken, as crestfallen as I did. And I felt like it was important for me to share that heartbreak. It was important for me to share, this was a big swing that I made and it didn't work. But look, I am still here. I still have a smile on my face. And I'm able to share what the lesson was in the loss for me, or, you know, the seeming loss, because actually it's not a loss, right? Like, no, I didn't get the thing that I wanted, but this opens the door to help me continue being laser focused in what I do want. It's a motivator to be like, oh, well, you know, maybe the next thing I do will make someone, I mean, I don't want other people to feel bad, but it's like, but maybe like this is going to make them wish that they had said yes, right? Like, but just keeping my eye on the fact that my work is not done, right? Like there's more for me to do. There's, okay, so on to the next thing, right? But I did feel like I had to share that and share how upsetting it was. And the response that I have gotten from that has been incredible, of people saying like, I needed to hear this at this moment, right? I needed to remember that, you know, it can't always be a win, right? It's not always a win. Sometimes you got to take these L's. and
social media doesn't give you a lot of space to do that, right? Because it's all about the wins. So to be able to show up and say, nah, we do, like you said, we're taking a lot of L's out here too. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody is. Everybody is not talking about it. There's not one person that's not experiencing that on some level. They just may not be sharing that. And so being able to be vulnerable to share then gives other people the permission to be courageous to do the same thing. And to know they're not alone. It helps to know that you're not the only one. You know,
and sometimes that, and not saying that we all want to wallow in misery together, but sometimes knowing that you know, to have someone publicly say, this didn't work out, I crashed and burned on that one. Sometimes knowing that there is someone else going through what you're going through is motivation for you. It's a reminder that, okay, if they're not going to stop, then I shouldn't stop.
Exactly.
So, you know, and I told someone, I was like, I'm not hating on the wins, right? Because I've had a lot of wins lately, a lot. But so not hating on it, but it is important to know that it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Like nothing, like there's light and there's dark, right? It cannot be light all the time. We would all burn alive, right? Like we would be so unhealthy. There has to be darkness in order for things to thrive. So, so yeah, I really appreciate you calling that out. And I just want to take this moment to remind someone that, you know, there is going to be a loss that you're going to experience. And it is not the stopping point if you don't want it to be. Don't let it be the stopping point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ooh, Christa, this has been really, really wonderful. And you have
Yes.
already given some guidance, but I'm going to ask you to bottom line it, reiterate it, or add anything that has come to mind. But for the person who is listening to this conversation right now, and they have that goal, that dream, that idea, that vision on their heart, but they have not taken action on it. They're not saying it out loud because the fear is more important than the idea or the vision or the goal. What is your guidance for that person?
That if you have the vision, that means everything that you need is already waiting for you. I really, truly believe that. I think that life is a series of being given signs and visions and direction. And it's just about being open to receive that. And if you're already at the point where you have that idea, you have that vision, you have that goal, then that means what you need to attain it already exists. And it's just a matter of you taking one step. And I'm in the midst of reading Will Smith's book. And in the first part of his book, he talks about laying bricks. And he talks about how when he was younger, his dad had he and his brother building this wall that it felt insurmountable, like we're never going to be done laying these bricks. And what was the issue was that he was so hyper focused on the end result and how when it was going to happen and the end, you know, how much it was going to take to get the wall built instead of just focusing on laying brick by brick by brick. So if you already have it, then all you have to do, my suggestion is the first step is to admit that you have the vision. That could be your first step, is even just saying it out loud and putting it in the atmosphere is your first step. Start there. And you will be amazed at even what happens by even just saying out loud. And you don't even have to say it out loud to someone else. If it feels like that's too much, say it out loud to yourself. Then say it out loud to somebody else. Then figure out, okay, what's one small action step that I can take in order to move this needle? Because again, what you need is it's only a matter of you needing it. I truly believe that. Once it's there, you're going to go through twists and turns and all these things. And once you get past this, there's going to be other fears. Me and Kim have been talking about this whole time. You know, fears come up. Will I realize the vision? But when you know your why and it's so strong within you, you'll be able to use tools and show receipts from before to help you kind of propel yourself forward. So just start by just saying it out loud and knowing that what you need is already on the other side.
Yes, giving your idea or your goal or your vision, giving it breath, giving it sound. As you said, even if it's just to you, right? Even if it's just in your bedroom, your bathroom, in the bathroom mirror, if you say, I want this, I want to do this, there is a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power. And I mean, I actually did this the other day for, a big, hairy, audacious goal that I have that when I said it, I'm like, really though? How you gonna do that? Right. But I will say, I mean, when I said it, I mean, my pace picked, I was out on a walk and I said it, into the dark of the dawn hours. And I mean, I could feel my heart rate go up. I felt like, I could feel my blood running underneath my skin. I mean, it does something to verbalize the thing that you want. So I love that you started with that of just say it. Just say it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. You'll feel a significant energy shift.
Absolutely. Because like I said, if it's already in you, it's even a matter of just being like, I received this vision.
Yes.
I received this. Because if it's already there, then it exists.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of you just saying, I received this.
Yeah.
And I received the steps and what I need in order to start marching in that direction. And
also, if it's in you, then it's for you, right? Because my dream is not the same as the dream that you have, right? Or, what my husband has or what B has, right? Like each of us has a vision that is unique to
Yes.
us.
Yes.
And we have a unique way that we're going to do it. We have a
Yep.
unique voice that we're going to give to it. So trust that the vision or the idea that you have, that it's for you to do, right? And chances are, this isn't the first time that you've thought about the thing that you want to do.
Exactly.
And if it keeps coming to you, then that's further proof that,
right,
you know, the energies, the source energy, God, whatever, is trying to tell you, would you just come on, right? Like, we are waiting for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you made that distinction too, Kia, about, you know, because I think sometimes people do get caught up in, well, there's already so many, you know, people that do this. And why would somebody want to do, you know, doesn't matter. Like, is nobody going, everybody got your thoughts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody who don't have what you specifically have something to add to this market, whatever that may be. So I'm glad that you said that, because I think that that's something that can trip people up, is that they start thinking that there's not enough space, or what can they do differently. It'll be revealed to you what your specific you know, contribution is going to be. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yes. There's room for all of us. There's room for all of us.
Yes.
Christa, oh my gosh, this could be 4 hours long, but we're not going to do that. We'll save that for our private conversations. But thank you for being such a gift and for joining this show and being in conversation with me, Christa.
Thank you so much for having me, Kia. You know, I always love our conversations, and I'm glad we were able to share just a snippet of the things that we talk about personally with your listeners. So thank you so much for having me. I love having these types of conversations.
Me too, and my pleasure. So Christa, where can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
So my website is coachingwithchrista.com, and Christa is CHRISTA, and also Instagram. And on Instagram, I'm at Coaching with Christa. I'm on other platforms as well, but those are the places where I show up the most. So either one of those.
And I will include all of Christa's information in the show notes so that you can connect with her and hear more of her wisdom on a more regular basis. Again, thank you so much, Christa, for joining.
Thank you, Kia.
Thank you. And thank you for listening in to this episode of Courage Permission Slip. If you are finding us on YouTube, please make sure you like this episode and subscribe so that you can be alerted when new episodes are available. And if you are listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, please remember to rate and review so that others who are interested in this content can find it as well. That is a wrap for today's episode. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of Courage Permission Slip. Bye.